Russian leader Vladimir Putin and China's Xi Jinping are on the minds of key G7 officials. The foreign ministers from the group of 7 richest democracies met in Liverpool this weekend. Here's what President Biden had to say yesterday.
I've made it absolutely clear to President Putin that if he moves on Ukraine, the economic consequences for his economy are going to be devastating. The impact of all of that on Russia and its attitude, the rest of the world's view of Russia, would change markedly. He'll pay a terrible price.
Joining me now is the top Republican on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Congressman McCaul of Texas. Congressman, welcome.
No, thanks for having me, Mike.
Are you convinced President Biden is sending a tough enough message to the Kremlin?
Well, you know, it sounds tough, but I think the actions need to beat the rhetoric. I think the problem, history teaches us that weakness invites aggression. I think you can go back to the Afghanistan evacuation, where it was a complete debacle, the unconditional surrender to the Taliban. And, Putin has taken a look at this, along with President Xi in China. He's always wanted Ukraine. It's a breadbasket of Russia. And his calculation is that this is a weak president. And now is the time. And I would also say, Mike, that his waiver of congressional sanctions on the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which will allow Putin to complete his pipeline into Europe, was a major foreign policy blunder that just emboldened and empowered Putin, which now gives him leverage over Europe and NATO right now.
What should the United States and its allies be doing to support Ukraine right now?
Right now, I think the threat of sanctions, but I think also the military aid needs to be strengthened. Right now, there's a $200 million lethal aid package sitting on the president's desk, and yet what he is saying is, I'm not going to give this to Ukraine, even though they asked for it, unless Russia invades Ukraine. It should be the other way around. We should be giving it to him now. Deterrence is really the key here, Mike.
Right.
And if we don't show deterrence, he will invade. And it would be the largest invasion in Europe since World War II.
If an invasion happens, what's an appropriate response from the United States?
Well, this is where they're not a NATO ally, but I think our presence in Poland and in the Baltic nations, because Mr. Putin is looking beyond Ukraine. And what he also wants is the port of Odessa, where we were going to send LNG, clean energy, and now he's probably going to maybe take that over. I think there's going to be more and more aggression to restore the old glory of the Soviet Empire. That is his ultimate goal here.
To the Beijing Olympics, the Biden administration says it's not sending a VIP delegation. What about a business boycott of the Beijing Games?
Well, we asked the IOC to move the games. They won't do that. I think the diplomatic boycott is appropriate. I don't think corporate America is going to do that, but they have a moral responsibility. I passed on the floor this last week the Uyghur Muslim Genocide Act, condemning China for their genocide, and we also passed the Forced Labor Prevention and Protection Act. I think corporate America has a moral responsibility that if they're going to support the games, they need to talk about what is happening in China with the ongoing genocide in the Xinjiang province. It is absolutely unacceptable.
I'm old enough to remember Jimmy Carter not sending American athletes to the Moscow Games. Is that going too far?
Look, these athletes have trained for a long time. I would rather us take home the gold than China. I go back to the Munich Games with Hitler, and no better statement than Jesse Owens getting the gold, proving to Hitler that the Aryan nation was not superior. And so I say, let our athletes compete, let them take home the gold, and let's give them an opportunity, like we've seen this basketball player, an opportunity to shed a light on the abuses and human rights violations happening in the Chinese Communist Party right now.
I'm also old enough to remember the Miracle on Ice in 1980, winning over the Soviet Union. So a few triumphs at the Winter Games in Beijing would be pretty awesome, wouldn't it?
I'd like to take home the gold, just like in Russia, we let the Russians and the Chinese. I say we beat them and take home the gold.
Amen. All right, Congressman McCaul, the great state of Texas, thank you so much for your time, sir. Have a great day.